Guitar tabs are lying to you. They say 80% of communication is non-verbal. It's not the words you say, it's how you say them. And music is exactly the same. It's not the notes you play, it's how you play them. And this is why some guitar players are so instantly recognizable. A lot of them have the same vocabulary, same scales, same kind of licks, but when you hear a note bent a certain way, you know that's Slash or David Gilmour. And this is what tab doesn't teach you. So in this video, I'm going to show you 5 silent killers that are actually making you sound worse than you are. And the catch is, you're probably not going to pick up these things when you're just practicing on your own, which is exactly why they can stick around for so long and why you need to watch this video. So the first silent killer I see a lot is flying fingers. This is where your fingers lift way too far off the fretboard in between notes, and it creates these little gaps in between every note you're playing, which gives it a staccato feel. Think about the way we talk. When you're speaking a sentence, it's almost one continuous sound. All the words are flowing into each other. But if I were to put a tiny pause between every word, it sounds weird, kind of annoying. And this is exactly what flying fingers does to your playing. And the tricky thing is, it's really hard to catch when you're in the moment actually playing. Something I noticed is a lot of my students, when I bring it up with them, they nearly don't believe me when I say that there are these little pauses between their notes. So what I will do is I'll actually record them into Logic, and I'll show them the waveform of what they're playing, and you can actually see these little silences between all their notes. And they're always shocked. So how do you fix this? Well, when you're practicing, you want to try make sure you're holding down your finger right up until you play the following note. So if I were to play a pentatonic scale, I go through each note and I'm making sure I keep my finger pushed down until the very end. Right? I'm not going like this. Right, lifting my fingers way off the fretboard. And a bonus tip is, if you are finding it hard to stretch far enough to be able to play those notes, 95% of the time it's going to be your wrist position, so experiment with that. If it's up too high, you might be finding it hard to reach, so you'll need to bring it down into this collapsed wrist position. And this is actually a good example of something that can be hard to diagnose on your own. So if you do need a second pair of eyes and a focused practice plan to actually work on the stuff that will be holding you back, I'll tell you more about how I can help with that later on in the video. Now the next one might just be the most neglected technique in intermediate and even advanced guitar players, and that is bends and vibrato. Here's what I see all the time. People learn bending and vibrato by watching other guitar players because it's quite a visually exciting thing to see, and because it has such an impact visually, people tend to reference what it looks like visually when they're actually practicing it. They copy what it looks like rather than what it sounds like. And especially with bends, people will just see a full bend in the tab and just push the string up without actually thinking what the target pitch is or what note they need to hit. Because the thing is, if you do a bend wrong, it's exactly the same as just playing a wrong note. There is no difference. If I'm looking at a tab and there's a full bend on the 8th fret, that means I need to make it sound like the 10th fret, no exceptions. And it's a cool way to play that A note there on the 10th fret by bending up to it. If I see that bend on the 8th fret and just push the string up randomly like this, I might only be getting the pitch of the 9th fret. But because of the way we learn guitar with these frets, we think, oh, if I'm playing the 8th fret and pushing it like a bend, then I must be doing the right thing. But in that example, it's literally the same as if I were just playing the 9th fret instead of the 10th fret, right? It's a lot different to completely different note but on the same fret. So to fix this, make sure bending and vibrato is something you practice intentionally, not just something that's an aside when you're learning a song and you throw in there when there happens to be a bend. And especially when you're new to this stuff, you should always know what your target pitch is. And you need to make sure you do this slowly and actually listen to what you're playing. Because to get good at bending, half of it's the technique on your left hand, but it's actually more your ears that need to be trained. And same with vibrato, make sure you slow it down and you're hovering around the correct pitch. You're not just right shaking the string. Should be nice and even like this. Now the next problem is a lack of picking dynamics, and this is another one I like to compare to speaking. If someone just speaks at the same volume the whole time, it's not very engaging, and yes, I do realize the irony of me saying this, but when you're playing guitar, if you're playing every note at the same volume, it just comes out sounding lifeless and flat. So what you want to do is thinking about creating some chatter in your playing. Some notes will pop more, some notes are held back and a bit quieter, and this actually naturally creates a push and pull or a tension and release, because tension tension and release isn't always created by note choice. So this is another tool you want to have in your tool belt. So there's a few good ways to practice this. The first one is if you're improvising, just choose like 2 to 3 notes, but really focus on using dynamics to create more tension and release. So if I just chose these 3, I'll put together some phrases and really using dynamics. Another one is if you're strumming, try put an accent or a louder strum on different strums within the pattern. So if I had a simple strum, I could go. Or I could try something like this. Gives it a bit more life. And another thing is to really actively listen to music or other guitar players. BB King's a great one to listen to because his dynamics are all over the place in a good way. Listen to which notes he's playing quietly and loudly, and subconsciously this stuff will start coming through in your own playing. So how many of these things are you guilty of so far? Because here's the problem, you can watch a video and think, yeah, I got all that. But actually building these things into a daily practice routine, that's where a lot of people fall off. So that's exactly why I offer 4-week custom practice programs. I look at where you are right now, figure out what you need to work on, and build a plan around targeting those things specifically for 4 weeks. No guesswork, no trying to figure it out on your own. So I'll drop a link in the description if you do want to check that out. But let's keep going. Now this next one is huge and is probably the most important thing on the list. Rhythm. So again, because we learn using tab, it's such an easy one to overlook. Tab tells you the notes to play, but it doesn't really tell you the rhythm. And to be honest, one of the biggest battles I have as a teacher is actually getting people to start playing along with songs, drum beats, just anything to keep them in time. And the reason people are so reluctant to do this is because it keeps you honest. It's very easy to bullshit yourself. You can tell yourself you're playing a song right, if you're putting your fingers all in the right places and playing it on your own, taking as much time to change between chords as you need. But when you play with the music, there's no hiding. That hard chord change that you take a few milliseconds longer when you're practicing on your own, it's not going to fly when you're actually playing with the song. So when you are learning a song, as soon as you've learned a section, you need to put it to some kind of rhythm, whether that's a metronome, just a YouTube drum loop, or a backing track, more ideally. Don't wait till you've mastered it, just do it as soon as possible. And it's going to feel frustrating at first and it'll feel like you've taken a few steps back, but this is going to make the difference between you sounding like a guy who's just learning guitar versus a guy who can actually play the guitar. So drop the ego on this one. Playing along to a song badly is better than playing it perfectly on your own. Now the last one is string noise, specifically blocking the strings you don't want to hear. And this is another one tab doesn't really help with. Tabs tell you which strings to play, and yes, there won't be a number written on the string if you're not meant to play it, but a lot of people ignore that. I find one of the most common places I see this is when people are playing bar chords or power chords built from the A string. So for example, if I was playing a C power chord on this A string, I have to use the tip of my finger to block this low E string. If I don't block that low E string and I keep my finger down here, that E string is going to be ringing over that chord. And as well as that, with a lot of your open chords as well, for example a D, you want to use your thumb to block that low E string, cleans it right up, without it blocked, with it blocked. Or your A chord, right, if I don't have that E string blocked, sounds terrible, get my thumb over, cleans it right up. And this is relevant too with your lead playing, especially if you're going to be playing rock stuff or higher gain stuff. Your picking hand should actually always be resting on the strings above the one you're playing. So if I'm playing the B string, I've got my right hand resting on the strings above. Because again, especially if I have distortion on and I'm playing lead guitar stuff, and I'm not blocking those strings, you can hear all that background noise and it sounds very amateurish. So again, I'm resting my picking hand above the strings I'm playing. And it will allow you to dig in a lot more too, because you can get that string rake. So the best way to fix that problem is you want to play with a really high gain sound, because it compresses the guitar signal or the sound, so you really can't get away with any strings ringing because you're going to hear it. So those are all the 5 silent killers, and I called them silent killers for a reason, because they're things that are really hard to catch on your own, and they can stay in your playing for months or even years. So you can take everything I talked about in this video and start working on it, be aware of it, and being conscious of it when you're practicing. But if you're the kind of player that wants someone to actually look at what you're doing and give you a plan, that's what my 4-week custom practice plans are for. So here's how it works. You send me a short video of your playing and fill out a questionnaire, and every week on the Google Doc, I'm going to send you through a list of what to practice every day for how long, what exercises, as well as a short 5 to 10 minute video every week where I explain how to practice everything and how to execute it properly. And there's even a pro option if you want Zoom lessons as well. So I'll leave the link to that in the description below, but no pressure. But if this video did hit a nerve and you feel like you need that help, it's probably worth checking out. Now, fixing all these problems is going to make a huge difference to the sound of your playing, but it is just one piece of the puzzle, because once you clean up your technique, how do you know what to actually play when you're improvising, for example? Well, I made a video that I'll put over here that explains exactly how to combine your pentatonic scales all over the fretboard with your chord shapes, so make sure to check that out.